Oh, gosh. We've just been outside chopping some logs for the fire, haven't we? And while I was chopping the logs, it reminded me of a story that I used to read in this old book when I was a little boy. It's a good story. Would you like to hear it? Yeah, you would. What's it about? Well, it's about an old dog. Once upon a time, on the edge of the woods, lived a woodcutter and his wife. And they had this old dog. They'd had him for years, and he was a lovely dog, but he was getting very old. Well, the woodcutter and the wife had just had a new little baby, a baby girl. She was only tiny, and she was very cute. Well, one day the woodcutter was sitting having his dinner, and he said to his wife, "Now we've got this baby girl, do we really need this old dog in the house? This smelly old dog? Look at him, he's got hardly any teeth left. Yeah, because they'd all gone rotten and fallen out. He can't see very well. He can't hear very well. And when you take him for a walk, he gets worn out and gets tired. Do we really need this dog?" No. Well, the wife said perhaps they didn't. So the woodcutter said, "I'll take him and get rid of him. I'll take him into the woods tomorrow and I'll leave him there, and we won't have to feed him or bother with him again." Well, it's a bit sad. Yeah, it's okay. It gets better. Anyway, the old dog, he was sitting in his basket by the fire, and he was listening to all this, and he thought, surely they're not going to throw me out and get rid of me. No. Anyway, next morning, the woodcutter got up, and he tied a string onto the dog's collar, and he said, "Come on, let's go for a walk." And he took the dog for a walk. But the walk got longer and longer and longer until they went deeper and deeper into the woods. And the dog started to think then about what the woodcutter had been saying, and he thought, uh-oh. They went deeper and deeper and darker into the woods, and the dog thought, uh-oh, uh-oh. And eventually they got right into the thickest, darkest part of the woods. Yes, the dog was a bit scared by then. He was a bit nervous. The woodcutter tied the dog to a sapling. What's a sapling? It's a very young tree, a sapling. Yeah. He tied the dog to the sapling, and he walked off and left him in the middle of the woods, in the cold woods. The dog howled and barked and yelped, but it was no good. The woodcutter didn't come back. And the poor dog was there, frightened in the woods, and it started to get dark, and the dog could hear bits of rustling and scratching as the woodland creatures came to life at night, and he could hear the owls hooting, and he was very scared and very cold. What, you don't want to hear any more? Because it's sad. It's okay, it gets better. When the dog was young, if he'd been on his own in the woods, he was fit and strong and he had all his teeth, and he wouldn't have been frightened of anything. But now, as an old dog, he was very frightened. Anyway, he heard something coming along the track, and when he peeped around the tree, he was shocked to see it was a big grey wolf with thick, shaggy fur and big teeth. Wow, the dog was really frightened. The wolf came round the corner and sniffed at him. "What are you doing in the woods?" he said. "Please don't eat me," said the dog. "Please don't eat me. My master has thrown me out. They don't want me any more because they've got a new baby in the house, and they said I was smelly, and he's brought me into the woods and left me here all on my own." "Don't be scared of me," said the wolf. "Wolves and dogs, we're related. Are you cold?" "Yes," said the dog, "I'm freezing." "Snuggle up to me," said the wolf. "My thick coat will keep you warm tonight. We'll sleep here and I'll look after you." Wasn't he kind? He was. Anyway, in the morning, the wolf bit through the string and let the dog go. But the dog didn't want to go back home, did he? Because he knew the woodcutter wouldn't want him. But the wolf said, "I have a plan. Take me to your home." So the dog led the wolf through the woods, through amongst all the trees, past the birches and the oaks and the beeches and the poplars, And eventually they came to the edge of the woods, and they looked out across the little field, and there was the woodcutter's cottage. Now the woodcutter had his axe, and he was chopping some wood for the fire. That's what reminded me of the story, you see, when I was doing that. And the wife was hanging washing on the washing line. And they had the little baby girl in her pram in the garden in the sunshine. She was watching the butterflies and the birds and the clouds in the sky. And she was kicking her little legs and going, goo goo gaga, like babies do. Yeah, have you seen babies doing that? Yeah. Anyway, the wolf said to the dog, what I'm going to do, I'm going to run across the field, jump over the fence, grab the baby and run off into the woods with it. And then you come after me and you pretend to bite me. I'll drop the baby and you take it home and see what happens. Well, it sounded like a good plan. And before the dog could say, yes, okay, the wolf was off. He exploded from the bushes and he tore across the field and he leapt over the fence. And just as he leapt over the fence, the wife was hanging the washing on the line and she dropped the washing and said, oh my gosh, a wolf in the garden, a wolf, mind the baby. But before they could grab the baby, the wolf got the baby and he lifted her up and he ran and jumped back over the fence. The woodcutter got his axe and he was going to throw his axe, but his wife said, no, don't, you might hit the baby. What could they do? The wolf bounded off towards the woods. Oh no, they hugged each other. Oh no, our baby is going to be eaten by a fierce wolf in the woods and there's nothing we can do about it. Oh, this is terrible. But then the old dog came running out of the bushes and he ran after the wolf, barking and barking as fiercely as he could. The wolf slowed down a bit so the dog could catch up, because the dog couldn't run very fast, could he? No. And then the wolf offered his neck like that, and the dog bit him in the throat. He didn't have many teeth, so it didn't hurt. And he shook the wolf. And the wolf yelped as if he'd been hurt, and he dropped the baby on the grass and ran off yelping into the woods. Well, the old dog, he picked up the baby very gently, and he came trotting back to the house. And the mother, she said, oh, my baby, and she gathered the little baby up, and the baby was all right, because the wolf had been very careful, and he hadn't actually hurt the baby at all. Oh, my baby is saved, she said. And look who saved the baby, said the woodcutter. Our old faithful dog. And he picked the dog up, and they hugged the dog, and they kissed the dog, and they made a big fuss of the dog. Yeah, sorry, did I poke you in the eye? And then they said, take the dog in the house. He's cold, look, and damp. Put him in his basket by the fire and prepare him the best breakfast he's ever had. We'll never, ever get rid of our old faithful dog ever again. So there was a happy end to the story, you see. Wasn't that wolf kind? And do you know what happened? As they were taking the dog into the house, the dog looked back and the wolf was on the edge of the woods. And the dog smiled at the wolf and wagged his tail, and the wolf winked and said goodbye. And that was the end of the story. Did you like that? So it was sad in places, but happy ending, yeah? That's what we like. Come on then.